Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Dudley Speaks, and I'm here to tell you that Balloonerism by Mac Miller is wonderful. Highly influential Pittsburgh artist Mac Miller has been gone for over 6 years now, and his impact on music as a whole is still felt to this very day. Personally, I think he's one of the most important artists over the last quarter century, starting out in Point Breeze, producing mixtapes as early as 2006. His big break, Kids, came on Rostrum Records in 2010, and it's still one of the best releases of his career and one of the best mixtapes of that decade. Best Day Ever followed in 2011 with hits like Donald Trump, and it was really off to the races from there. His debut record, Blue Slide Park, was widely impactful to the modern indie rap scene. It's really amazing to see how his catalog would grow throughout the early to mid 2010s. Faces dropped in 2014 and is still my favorite body of work from Mac, playing around with A$AP Rocky, Earl Sweatshirt inspired cloud rap, as well as the psychedelia that he started to introduce to his albums like Watching Movies with the Sound Off. Good AM, The Divine Feminine, and Swimming all hold a similar space in my heart, as we saw Mac consistently growing in his approach to instrumentation and arrangement, with the latter being one of the best records that he had ever made. Sadly, he hasn't been able to see how his vision turned out, and that's devastating. 2020 Circles, a quite hopeful posthumous record, points to Mac's optimistic yet ruminative perspective, one that was heartbreakingly primed to move forward. So with Balloonerism, which was recorded all the way back in 2014 around the same time as Faces, finally being given an official release from Mac's estate, we're plopped right back into Mac's unstoppable voice and vision. And it's a gem, as expected. The hypnotic production from primarily Thundercat and also Mac himself under the alias of Larry Fisherman really serves as a precursor to the kind of atmospheric, organic textures that he'd work on The Divine Feminine and Swimming. But what's interesting is hearing the crossroads he was at, between explorative alt-funk tones and psych-rap, striking a natural balance that's intoxicating and singular. The trippy, uncompromising introduction through the halfway point of DJ's chord organ holds off on revealing Mac's vocals as long as it can, not levitating it with a fluffy cloud of reverb, but mood-based instrumentality that feels ethereal yet raw and live. Do You Have a Destination, Stoned, and Friendly Hallucinations benefit from the same approach here, leveraging the softer instrumentation into a psych-jazz framework that's challenging. Still though, it contains a classic laid-back tone that allow Mac's raps to fit the composition like a perfect puzzle piece. Truly some of my favorite musical moments of Mac's entire career come from $5 Pony Rides, Funny Papers, Shangri-La, and Rick's Piano, all of which are incredibly constructed pieces of experimental jazz rap that you could put up there with Lupe Fiasco and Nas in their execution. Particularly the free jazz and indie alt rap of the latter is improvisational as hell, impressively channeling its creative energy into distinctive piano-driven passages that are delicate and peaceful. Then of course there's the immaculate closer, Tomorrow We'll Never Know, transcendental in its scope and painfully human in how its message is translated, through spare sonic ambition that's open-ended, DIY, and ultimately starkly beautiful in its solemn approach. The writing explores themes that are along the same lines of Circles, and its discussion surrounding existentialism, and honestly, it's even more harrowing in light of Mac's passing. Mac poses the question, what does death feel like, and why does death steal life, on Rick's Piano? A stunning analysis that dives into Mac's inquisitions on purpose, and the search for universal truths in the face of ambiguity about the afterlife. Something that the massive closer invites as well, as Mac questions again if those that have left this plane of existence dream like we do. But it's really the second verse that stood out to me in its prescient view of how a lot of us would eventually come to wrestle with interpersonal strife in the late 2010s. The pressure is building like buildings you jumped from, wishing that wishing could lift this conundrum. The streets you walk on are shallow, but do you feel as big as your shadow? Masterful lyricism, as Mac is able to deftly display the inner torment of depression and the fear of not being able to live down or outgrow your deepest mistakes and regrets. It seeps into our very idea of existence and questioning what it's all for. Because if living is dying over and over like Mac suggests, where do we find the value in the meaning? From Mac's perspective, it's challenging himself and reckoning with his own lost soul, like on Mrs. Deborah Downer, while also interrogating the idea of quick fixes on $5 Pony Rides. And sure, maybe it doesn't answer these questions as much as it reflects Mac's ruminations, but that's the point. This is a snapshot in time of a man that desperately wanted answers, as well as direction and guidance. But little did he know he was providing some of that wisdom to himself by just simply trying to understand what his existence signified. Mac's performance on this record exemplifies his ability to adapt, which was a clear progression he was working with when it came to his rap-sung approach, which ever so slightly emphasized an alt-jazz lean, and it really works here, especially on the catchier tunes like $5 Pony Rides and Funny Papers, as well as Do You Have a Destination and Stone, which are a tad more playful than a lot of the tracks here. Friendly Hallucinations is very predictive of Swimming, especially, with Mac's airy chorus vocals and poetic, almost spoken word passages, coming off pretty polished, evoking Mos Def as much as prime J. Cole. Also his flows on Mannequins are elite, grounding you in his worldview with realism, while sparking intrigue at his wordplay about spiritualism that's delivered without pomposity or urgency, but just simply with humanity. Like, you hear him rapping on this record, and nothing comes off as less than genuine, partly because he's willing to spotlight the clear vulnerability in his voice and bring it to the audience. This album's track listing works very hard to craft an immersive listen for fans, dropping us into the project with a two-parter that builds up so much tension with an immense payoff. From there, Mac's personality and bravery keep us entertained and engaged, balancing between cavalier storytelling and raw, emotionally charged lyricism that is boosted by his and Thundercat's muted, psychedelic undertones and outstanding jazz touches. The back half is absolutely stellar, in my opinion, finding Mac at his most contemplative and compelling, while also staying true to the roots of hip-hop that he had always respected. And that's why we love him and appreciate him after all these years, and through all 11 minutes of the last song. He displays real authenticity, and it's a quality of his that I, and I'm sure many others, really deeply miss.
Did no one ever teach you how to dance? Nobody ever taught.
Balloonerism may be considered depressing or alienating due to its content, but this is a record that should be treasured for its honesty. The psychedelia of Faces bleeds into this project, but it's also a stark reminder of the trajectory that Mac placed himself on, as it led to his experimentation with the form that, in retrospect, is one of the best runs in hip-hop history. Though he sadly can't see where his legacy took the genre today, I think it's comforting knowing that something like this could inspire younger artists, and that this is the final release, a coda, if you will, to a career that was devastatingly cut short but will never be forgotten. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Mac Miller fan, this is yet another reason to celebrate him, and if you're looking for a soothing jazz rap journey through the questions of life and death, you'll get a lot out of this. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!